Okay. Oh. I had to stand up and scream. Intense. How wonderful. Welcome, one and all. Welcome, all and one. Thank you for joining us for our live stream, Aesthetically Speaking Music, ASM live stream. And we have an incredible presentation for today. And I hope that you will all join in and put your comments or anything into the chat, because hopefully this will elicit some questions and comments on those of you that have chosen to come in and join us, and we will try and answer them. Before I go any further, I want to introduce our staff, our wonderful staff of ASM, Ilham, Tamet, and Juan Cardoso. Ilham, you're first. Ladies, always first.
Yeah, thank you. Greeting everybody.
Yes.
And first of all, I want just to see that the last live stream was very interesting. Thank you, Ralph and Juan, for the job and everything. And and I hope that you will. For everybody, I wish that you will have great time in this live stream. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Juan.
Good evening, everyone. we will have a very delightful live stream as we had last week, and we'll be having each week. And it's been very interesting. And we're gonna talk about some interesting things that happened on last live stream, which was by far the biggest views we had so far. And we talked about uh, classical music, music theory, what these words mean, what these terms mean. And because of that, we're gonna start answering to some of the comments that people left there. And to complement this information that we shared last week, and it's, we can talk about about it many times. It's a very wide discussion about many things. And also, yeah, tonight we're gonna talk about another word, which is jazz, and what it means, and why some people, which are considered, jazz legends, didn't call their music like this, didn't like the word jazz, and so on. And naming is important, right, Ralph?
Naming is very important. Because if you weren't Juan, who would you be? Naming is very important. Before we go further, if it's okay, I will read our mission statement, our vision statement, actually, of ASM, Aesthetically Speaking Music, our vision statement. And I hope you listen very carefully to this, because some of our comments that we received last week, obviously people did not listen to our vision statement, and they did not really listen to the people that presented this music on classical music, music theory being white supremacist, also the other issues that people have come up with classical music. And I think it's very important, and we will be discussing, or we will comment on the comments that we received. I should say that's what we're going to do. But before I go any further, I want to read our vision statement again. The vision for ASM, Aesthetically Speaking Music, has a multi-layered purpose to incorporate and bring attention to the creative and ever-evolving musical cultures of African and African diasporic music. ASM allows people throughout the globe, through listening, research, and technology, to experience the historical, aesthetic, educational, and therapeutic values in music for all people. All people. The vision of ASM will be valued by future generations, prayerfully, as it helps to enlighten and educate underserved communities on the cultural values of musical expressions and its significance. Through videos, interviews, historic references, and discussions, ASM will attract listeners and seekers throughout the globe. The vision of ASM is to bridge generations that seem to be separated only by choice, by creating platforms and communities, schools, nursing and convalescent facilities, and correctional institutions. This is done through the therapeutic, educational, and aesthetic values instilled by the creators and those who continue to bear the cultural traditions. Ashe. And we're gonna go into some of the comments, and we're going to look at them. And we want those of you that have joined us to look at them. Adiami, how you doing, brother? Deirdre, Derek, Carolyn, good to see you on our Zoom. those of you that aren't on Zoom are on our YouTube. So be sure that you can write any questions or any comments that you have so we can get those under our belts as well. So shall we go to our first comment that we got? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. We should talk about the upcoming week. Sorry about that. And that is very, very, very important. 1 week from tonight, we will have the 15th module of Aesthetically Speaking Music, and it is our 15th module and open house. And our open house is free for everyone. We want to have a big gathering so we can talk about what our next module will look like. And our next module will look at the music, the evolution of music, the revolution, the evolution, and the expressions from 1973 to 1980. So we'll be talking about disco music. We'll be talking about the loft scene in New York. We will be talking about the crossover artists, the producers. We will have a different subject for every single session that we will be doing. And I want to make sure that that you will join us for that. Like I said, our open house is open for all, and it will be on Zoom. Am I correct? Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead, brother.
It's on Zoom and same day, same time as tonight, so you're more than free to join us, and the information will be available in our website tomorrow on, so you can do the subscriptions, or if you want to send us an email to ask questions and give ask for more information. Our email address is aestheticallyspeakingmusic@gmail.com.
Could you show that, Juan? Is it possible?
What do you mean, the website?
Our email, so people could see that. I'm not sure. I don't know if everybody came in with their pencils and pens ready, but here it is.
I just put in the Zoom chat, and also
Okay.
I'll put YouTube chats for our YouTube
There we
viewers.
go. There we go.
Just email us or access our website, and we will let you know every information. So should we start?
Okay, let me say this. As Juan was saying, we had quite a few comments about our last session on classical music and music theory. I want to say that on this, ASM believes in love and equality and peace for all. This is what brought us this far, and this is what will take us further into the future. Sometimes the people that come in do not, well, this is the first time that this has happened, which is why I thought it'd be important that we show some of the comments that we got. I was aghast by some of the things that I read, but then realizing the temperature of the times that we live in, people do not always understand our mission or our vision statement. So they put things in that I think were very discriminatory, very demeaning, and some of them were just plain mean. And I think it's important that we show some of those and we can comment on those, or you could read them for yourselves. So without any further ado, is that where we're at right now? We shall look at some of the comments. Thank you, Juan.
Yeah. So yeah, just to give a little bit more context, we react to two videos. One is from the channel called 12 Tone, which is a music theorist, and the other one is from the Adam Neely channel, and both provide references, research, sources of what they are saying. And as Ralph just said, we were discussing classical music, this term, and music theory. And most of the arguments come from then, and we did some comments and complement information. And let's start with the first comments. Do you read
Sure.
it?
Okay,
Oh.
shall I read? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, you have to consider context, contemporaneity. Whoa, what kind of word is that? Etc. The music isn't racist. Some of it is clearly brilliant in the 1500s, 1700s, etc. We didn't have multiculturalism and globalization. You can hear the European influence in jazz, the classical and the other European tropes embedded into music of Afro-Caribbean origin. You can hear the Western influence on Indian music and vice versa. Music is sublime, beyond the perimeters of such ideas. Intrinsically noble and highly creative musicians never bothered with racist ideas. They were doing busy being fascinated by disparate cultures and creating music. Now, I think it'd be good if we can let you all read this. Everyone can read, and I think for our next comments, we'll let you read this. But obviously, judging by the comments from this person, whoever they may be, they didn't listen to what we were saying. In fact, they actually said it was us who were making the comments on classical music. And it was actually two different people talking about, actually three different people. One of the persons was the professor from Hunter College, and
Dr.
there were
Philip
two others. They were who?
It's Dr. Philip Yu from
Yule.
Hunter. And the others, what do you mean? I think it was just him.
Okay.
And yeah. Oh, the other two, the channel owners is 12 Tone. I forgot
Yes.
his name. And Adam Neely is the name of the channel and
Adam
the
Neely. Yes.
creator.
Yes.
I just have one thing that I would like to highlight from this phrase, because what I have to comment on, most of these comments are the same thing, so I'll leave it to the end. But I just want to highlight these. Musicians never bother with racist ideas. Which musicians, I ask? Which musicians? Are you saying that no musicians ever had problem with racism in their field, in their life, in their? I can name a bunch of situations that this happens, and it's just absurd to say that. And basically, this summarizes a lot of things that I want to say, but I'll leave most of the comments after we read these ones. Can I skip? Gonna go to the next one?
Yes. Yes.
Can you read, Brendan?
I don't see a problem with a given culture placing more importance on its own traditions. You act as if it's some grand conspiracy that white people's music has been given priority in Western culture. Really? But the West is the part of the world where Europeans or people of European ancestry are the majority. Of course, our music culture is centered on European musical traditions. That's our cultural heritage. Would you be shocked to find that in India, they prioritize Indian musical traditions? Are we in the West not allowed to have a culture? Why does it bother you so much? There seems to be lots of petty resentment and insecurity behind these attacks on Western and only Western canons. Having said that, I think it can be a fruitful intellectual exercise to question categories and labels. It can open up new avenues of creativity if you went about in a different way and with better motives. I would be more sympathetic. Very interesting. I would be more sympathetic. I
Oh
would be
yeah,
more sympathetic too.
yeah. Just a quick comment as well. When he says, "But the West is part of the world where Europeans or people of European ancestry are the majority." Uh, and that's funny because it depends on what you call West and what you call European ancestry, and saying that this is the majority. For example, I know that probably he will not consider that, but I'm from Brazil, and believe it or not, Brazil is considered Western world, and 60% of our population is black. So we couldn't say this from Brazil, for example. But I'll give more information. I want to talk about the situation in Brazil, but again, I'll leave it to the end. But just this really quick observation, maybe he doesn't consider Latin American Western world, and this says more than many things that he put out in words.
And let me reaffirm that it was not us who was giving uh, the information on theory and white supremacy. It was others. It was the others. It was not us. We responded to it, which we are going to respond further to our next. And I want you to see these, and hopefully you will have some comments or some questions about what we're hearing, or you can ignore it completely, because sometimes, the things that we're going to be showing, some of them are, I think he said, Google is retarded. Okay, very good. Google is retarded. It can be new avenues of creativity, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, I don't think this person listened to what we were talking about thoroughly enough, or they weren't, I think they wanted to say it was us who were the presenters rather than those whose interviews that we showed actually took a stance on this music. Let's look at the next one.
Okay, that was a really long one, so I cut some part that he goes to another subject about Chopin's and how to analyze Chopin music and so on. And this point that he has about it, for me, is not a problem. You can agree or not with that. I don't have any opinion, but I just removed this. But even though it's kind of big, uh, but yeah, uh, can you read this, Rob, please?
Classical music and music theory aren't racist, and you're using the terms wrong anyway. Okay, we're using the terms wrong. Classical music has always referred to a specific style of music of the Western world, really, as opposed to folk and or popular music in the Western world. The term doesn't refer to other cultures at all to begin with and shouldn't be used that way. And neither should you use the term to refer to specific music from other cultures. Shame on me. That's all. I would also add that classical music features polyphony, and most pertinently, it is a distinctly written tradition as opposed to improvised or passed orally. You also do classical music a huge disservice when you ignore that this music has analytical, critical, historiographical, musicological, and philosophical practices, as do all other forms of non-classical music. And the first video you show is just dumb, really. We properly trace the entire classical music tradition not to 19th century Germany, but back to 9th century medieval music, 9th century. That's when we can trace the first written music tradition. And as to the ridiculous amount of time wasted on the basso continuo nonsense, yes, it is, the AP course that is pictured as the centerpiece of that argument is titled The Harmonic Style of 18th Century Musicians. If you want to study that specific style, your course better contain continuo. If you want to study jazz harmony, you're better off with a classic like the Lydian chromatic concept of tonal organization by George Russell. You use the right tool for the right application, and the assertion that it makes more sense to theorize Chopin through jazz syntax as opposed to
Yeah, this I skipped. It talks about these, and I just skipped to the end. Finally, go finally, please.
Finally, the Shakespearean concepts elucidated in this video were all but dismissed by composers in academic settings almost as fast as they appeared, as they could not be applied with any useful input to non-tonal, atonal, 12-tone, minimal, and other styles of contemporary composition. And Schenker is now relegated as simply yet another tool used to help understand the music narrowly of the classical periods of composition. Once you hit the 20th century, it ceases to exist in discussion or application. I wish you all knew more about what the heck you were talking about. Really. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Very interesting.
I'm gonna stick to this one because I think it's the one who has more information that we can talk about. But if you want me to go back to any of the others, just let me know. But please,
Go to the next one. Yeah.
These both are the same, you know. Is this guy Todd Levin, and
Okay.
this is just the end.
I
Yeah.
I read that.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's more. Yeah, I forgot. This is just
Liberals hunt for racism in very way. I wish they knew how to write a sentence, for one thing. Liberals hunt for racism in very way, and for the very reason that communists hunted for the kulaks. Really? The neo-Marxists of today's Democratic Party subsist and thrive on racism. Really? When hard evidence of racism cannot be found, videos like this begin to appear. Those who wish to realize racism for the advancement of their political agenda are actually worse than the racists themselves.
Well, yeah, we're getting to the we're getting to the trash zone. But it's nice to know that me and Ilham, in despite of not being American citizens and being in Brazil and France, we are both democratic. So let me know when my green card comes.
It's crazy.
Now we're going to really the rough area, and it's even
You say this is the trash area.
yeah, this is the very and
Reality and nature is racist. Or spell it, man. Come on. Almost all scientific and technological breakthroughs we accomplish by non-African people, including only double Nobel Prize winner, a Polish woman named Maria Sklodowska. What he is trying to say, or Maria Curie, what does this have to do with what we were talking about?
Oh, that basically black people don't have any good accomplishments in society. It's just you know, this is this last ones is the one that we won't waste our time with. It's just to display what kind of people these first ones that we showed that at least had some kind of information, which people they are pairing with, you know. And for me, it's basically that. I don't know if you want to comment more, but I won't even give them this, you know. It's just show to people what kind of reaction that we got a really small YouTube channel for just discussing the terms classical music and music theory, the kind of hate for just putting something in question and for showing evidence from other people, and just commenting on these people. They are giving all the arguments, and we are just commenting and giving more information, other arguments as well. But they show the evidence, they show the links, they show the references, and this is the kind of hate, and it just gets lower. Like
Okay, check this out. If only rioting and looting had a key, Black people would be the greatest composers of all time. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, one of the things that YouTube does, let's leave that up for a minute. One of the things that YouTube does is it takes a consensus of males, females, ages, et cetera. The majority, in fact, all of the people that commented, and there were many that commented on this particular session on classical music, were male. And we know what males it was because they say
Here, brother, just a second. I'm sorry. Just a parenthesis of what you just said. We had 1,600 views in this video. 1,600, more than 1,600. And according to YouTube analytics, 100% were men. And
yes.
our next most watched live stream is 178.
It's amazing, just amazing. But we can ignore these things. The only reason why I thought it important to show some of these responses and comments is because we don't go down that path. And I'm so sorry that people have such small minds and small understandings of what it is that we do and what we're trying to do with aesthetically speaking music. These people got it all wrong, but yet I think it's important for our seekers to see exactly what it is what's out here in space, I should say. What kind of attitudes that we have in our country in space. Yeah. So, if there's any questions that you may have or any comments that you may have on some of the comments that we have received from last week, and we will continue this. This is not a done deal. I'm going to say that. We're not through with classical music and music theory. And we will continue with other opinions of that shortly. Okay?
Can I just
Yeah, go ahead, please.
these things? So as I said, I'm gonna resume the first ones, not the last ones. And the same thing because I think they go to the same path, which is thinking that we are talking about music, we're talking about classical music itself, and that we're just saying that because we don't like classical music. And it's not a matter of opinion and if whether we like or not classical music. I love classical music. Mozart was my first contact with music in my life, for example. And I love classical music, but I love all kinds of music and many kinds of music. And I'm a musician, I'm a composer. And just about this end, I wish you all knew more what the heck you're talking about. This is just disrespectful, because you're talking about you're talking with everyone here has degrees. People in the video have degrees in Berkeley. Dr. Philip L is a doctor. Ralph is a master. I can talk about every day about the credentials if you put it this way. But I just want to just say this, it's just disrespectful to say something like that when you don't know the people. But this person rise up some interesting comments, and for me, it's just about three things, uh, common sense perceptions, musical education, and the terminology, So basically, what we are discussing is that, okay, you have a Western tradition of music and so on and so on, but why should this be the only, and I mean the only access, the only thing that you can access to go to college? Why is that the only kind of music knowledge that is taught on schools? So, for example, as I said, I'm from Brazil, and in the Brazilian college, the one that I went to, but I know that most of the colleges here are the same way. The only harmony course that we have is figure bass, That's the only thing, voice leading according to the laws of figure bass, This is Brazil 2024, and we're talking about the country of samba, of bossa nova, of forró, and hundreds and hundreds of other genres of music. So what we're talking about is not about taste, it's not about whether I like it or not, is the only thing who gives you access to academia and therefore to better job opportunities in your fields. And Ralph lived his whole life dedicated to music. I lived my whole life dedicated to music. All these people involved here in these dedicated their lives to music, and we know what we are talking about because we suffer with this every day, and not because of just the races, many other stuff, but the access that you have to stuff depends on how much you have knowledge. And of course, we both have this knowledge, and even though it's hard, it's hard to have access to some kind of things. But why the only thing that is taught in Brazil and Germany and the USA is this kind of knowledge, this kind of harmony, this kind of approach? So, and one thing, some things that he just got wrong, yeah, he just contradicted himself in his own argument because he started saying, classical music has always referred to a specific style of music. Which style? So you're talking about non-tonal, atonal music, minimalism, you're talking about Baroque, you're talking about Gregorian chant, you're talking about 12-tone, expressionism, minimalism. All of these are under the umbrella of classical music. And you can see how it's problematic to say that all of this is the same style. We're talking about 500 years of music tradition and different properties in this music, So what are you talking about? What style are you talking about? You're saying that Gregorian chants and John Cage is the same thing? Is the same style of music? That's what you're talking about? So we're just saying there's a problem with the word classical music because classic is a period of music, And one thing that he got wrong, and he does a mistake here, he says that the AP course is called the harmonic style of 18th century musician. And he just doesn't understand what Adam Neely is doing, because Adam Neely is doing a joke all along his video, which is replacing every time that someone says music theory, he's replacing by the harmonic style of 18th century. So it's not the name of the course. The name of the course is AP Music Theory that
Yes.
Adam Neely is discussing in his video. So this is just wrong, he just didn't get what he's talking about. And, basically that's it, and he also considers all the problems with why non-white composers of classical music, and we open with Joseph Bologne Chevalier de Saint George, which was from the same period of Mozart, had a great career in music, and no one ever listened about him. You have to really look for. So, for example, I am very, and I'm finished, Ralph, I'm sorry for being that long, but I have the lucky of knowing someone like Ralph, who opened my mind and my ears to other musical conceptions and led me to many other ways of interpret music. And he talks about polyphony as this was a property of classical music. He probably never listened to any of African traditional music, let's put it this way, like the Baka people in the rainforest, as we shown. And I would like to invite all these people to learn, to watch more of our videos that we show, not just talk about, but we show, we give references of other kinds of music, amazing kind of music of the African diaspora, which, are from these. And, what I was going to saying to, just to conclude, is that I have the lucky of knowing someone as Ralph, who gave me this information and give me another possibility in my study to learn about other kind of music. But if you just go to school, if you just go to music college, probably you won't have access to this. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about musical education, the next generations, and of course, this hierarchy that seems to have when you talk about classical music, oh, that's the best kind of music, and jazz is inferior, hip hop is down below, there's no hierarchy, and you see this kind of speech all the time when they're talking about classical music or classical instruments, and I've heard this my whole life. I'm sorry, brother, it was too long.
Oh, thank you, brother, for those kind words, and also for those very serious words that you portrayed. And let me say this one thing, and then we will move on. When you hear the term serious music, serious music, what does that in your mind? And I'm just going to put it out there to our listeners and those of you that are with us today. When you hear the term serious music, what do you think about? Or what do these people think about? They're basically saying serious music. So we will go on, and I'm just going to say that we want to play a short interview by the great master musician, Max Roach. And this is something that he was talking about with this music and so-called jazz music and European classical music. And we're going to get into the term jazz today, and we're going to hear what people have talked about, some of our masters, and what do they have to say. Here we go with Max Roach.
I don't know if he coined the phrase, but it's like, and this is the phrase that I choose to use, and I wonder, how do you feel about this? The term African American classical music. I mean, let's put it on the same plateau as a Beethoven, a Tchaikovsky, so on and so forth.
Well, I think that what we're doing is the music of the 20th century. It's the music of the 20th century. That stuff is, I mean, when I was going to school even, and we had to deal with that music of the people you just mentioned, Beethoven and Mozart and Vivaldi and them. That music is dead. It's music of the cemetery.
Right.
Plus, it's imperialistic. This music that we deal with is very democratic. It's collective creativity. The imperialistic element in their music is there's two people who control everything. That's the composer and the conductor. But the composer, it's like this whole king-queen thing. And there you have 100 musicians, 106 musicians, and a 200-voice chorus to play, to do this Handel piece that they have to do every year around Christmas. And they're up there, but this stuff is all imperialistic. It's just the chorus, they're a bunch of serfs, the whole orchestra, that's serfs. These people are like slaves. They just do what the bidding of this one person who has written it, and this conductor who is the who's the driver man, so to speak. The driver man with us was in slavery was the guy who used the whip to make sure we worked from sun up to sundown. That's what it is. This music that has come out of us in this country, like when Joe Siegel hires us to work the showcase downstairs, his first question is, "Hey Max, who is with you?" I say, "Well, I got Cecil Bridgewater, Odine Pope, and Tyrone Brown." He said, "Great." Because, and you notice, when he announces the programs, he always adds the names of the people who are involved. Because even though it's my band, I may just introduce an idea, but everybody with me has to be able to take that idea and create and build upon it. And so collectively, we deal with what's happening. John Coltrane's band, John was the focal point, but it couldn't have happened had it not been for Elvin and Jimmy Garrison and McCoy Tyner. It was the perfect thing for them to collectively create that sound that just turned the world around in many ways. Miles, the same thing with John Coltrane and Philly Joe in that crowd. It's always like that with us. So I wish this country would copy and deal with themselves like we have brought this music, but we exemplify democracy. I don't really deal with it because it's always been like that in Africa. It's communalism, like Jomo Kenyatta, his book Facing Mount Kenya. When the Europeans came there, they asked him, "Well, who tills all this land? How is so well organized? Do you have a town hall and office of records?" And the Africans explained, "Well, this is the way we are. It's communalism. You know, it's a family that does this. Like it belongs to the world." The Europeans said, "Well, do you have any records that say that this community does this and that and the other?" They said, "We don't need that. It's just natural. You do your job. Each person knows their job, and so we grow things, we harvest things, and we take care of ourselves in this way." And the Europeans came in and started taking records and naming things of their own. You know, when Stanley and Livingston saw those great falls, and they came and looked at it, they had syphilis and everything and was sick and died shortly thereafter, traveling around Africa, claiming everything, putting the British flag up there and said, "This is Queen Victoria Falls." That was a joke, but the world went for it. I don't know how they did. Then, of course, after that, they sent their army in to make sure that it was theirs.
Are we giving our cultural?
Okay. Thank you, Brother Max Roach. I think he put a wonderful spin on what we were talking about, which this is going to lead us into our next topic, and that is the use of the term jazz. And I want to show a statement. I sent this out before. Some of you have seen it, and maybe some of you have not. But the statement about jazz music by the great Charles Mingus. Okay. Well, okay, yes. Shall I read it? Well, the word jazz bothers me. It bothers me because as long as I've been publicly identified with, I've made less money and had more trouble than when I wasn't. Years ago, I had a very good job in California writing for Dinah Washington and several blues singers, and I also had a lot of record dates. Then, by some chance, I got a write-up in a jazz magazine, and my name got into one of those jazz books. As I started watching my jazz reputation grow, my pocketbook got emptier. I got more write-ups and came to New York to stay. So I was really in jazz, and I found it carries you anywhere from a nut house to poverty. And the people think you're making it because you get write-ups, and you sit and starve and try to be independent of the crooked managers and agencies. You try to make it by yourself. No, I don't get a good feeling from the word jazz. Very Very, very, very powerful words, a very powerful statement by Charles Mingus, and he lived by that statement. You know, many of us that do this music also live by that statement. You know, once we have made a decision to embrace this music, to give our lives to this music, we find out that the earning power in doing this music is virtually non-existent, not just now, but even then, you know. So,
And you can see
Charles Mingus. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and you can see how even though there are two topics tonight, they really connect somehow.
Absolutely. Absolutely connected. Absolutely. So what we've done tonight is that we have arranged some opinions, not only of the term jazz or jazz, but people who have rejected that, great musicians who have rejected that word jazz, but also musicians that have rejected the term bebop, as in this interview with Charles Yardbird Parker.
I think you did more than anybody in the last 10 years to leave a decisive mark in the history of jazz.
Well, not yet, Paul, but I intend to. I'd like to study some more. I'm not quite through yet. I don't consider myself too old to learn.
No, I know many people are watching you at the moment with the greatest of interest to see what you're going to come up with next in the next few years. Myself among the front row of them. And well, what have you got in mind? What are you going to be doing?
Well, seriously speaking, I mean, I'm going to try to go to Europe to study. I had the pleasure to meet one Edgar Varese in New York City. He's a classical composer from Europe. He's a Frenchman. Very nice fellow, and he wants to teach me. In fact, he wants to write for me, do some things for me for, you know, more or less on a serious basis, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if he takes me over, I mean, after he finishes with me, I might have a chance to go to Académie de Musicale in Paris itself and study, you know? And, well, my prime interest still is learning to play music, you know?
Would you study playing or composition or everything?
I would study both. I never want to lose my horn.
Yeah, you never should. That would be catastrophe.
I never want to do that. That wouldn't work.
Uh-huh. Well, we're kind of getting ahead of the record sequence here, but it's been most fascinating. You want to say something about Miles Davis?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how I met Miles. In 1944, Billy Eckstein formed his own organization. Dizzy was on that band also. Lucky Thompson. It was Art Blakey.
Oh, yeah.
Tommy Potter. And a lot of other fellas, and last and least, yours truly.
And modesty will get you nowhere, Charlie.
I had the pleasure to meet Miles for the first time in St. Louis when he was a youngster. He was still going to school. Later on, he came to New York. He finished Juilliard. Miles did. He graduated from Juilliard. And at the time, I was just beginning to get my band together, you know, 5 pieces here and 5 pieces there. So I formed a band and took it into the Three Deuces for maybe 7 or 8 weeks. And at the time, Dizzy, after the Eckstein organization broke up, Dizzy was about to form his own band. There were so many things taking place then. I mean, it's hard to describe it because it happened in a matter of months. Nevertheless, I went to California in 1945 with Dizzy after I broke up my band, the first band I had. And I came back again to New York in 47, the early part of 47. And that's when I decided to have a band of my own permanently. And Miles was in my original band. I had Miles, I had Max, I had Tommy Potter, and Al Haig in my band.
Mm-hmm.
Another band I had Stan Levy, I had Curly Russell, I had Miles, and George Wellington.
Yeah.
But I think you have a record out there that one of the records we made with Max and Miles, I think, and yours truly. Tommy and Duke Jordan. What is it? I think it's perhaps, is it not so? Right. Well, this came along in the years of, say, 47, 46, 47. These particular sides were made in New York City. WNEW, 1440 Broadway. And this is the beginning of my career as a band leader.
Okay, well, let's listen to Perhaps.
Okay.
Use the word jazz is because
Hold on. You know, I think it's important to know that during this interview, and I will encourage those of you that have not listened to the entire interviews, Charlie Parker and Paul Desmond doing the interviewing, and he said something about the term bebop. And Charlie Parker says, well, you know, why are we calling it bebop? I prefer we call it music. Thelonious Monk said, I cannot embrace the term, not in his own words, but I cannot embrace the term jazz or bebop. We call our music modern music. Okay, and then you understand what's going on is that it's very important that the musicians, the people that are creating the music, should choose what it is that they want to call their music. One is not better or worse, but it's important to know what type of attitude displayed this music and gave it that name of so-called jazz music. As Dr. Yusef Lateef will say in this very short interview, and he talks about some of the words that this music has been associated with.
use the word jazz is because if you consult like the Webster dictionary, you'll find definitions like skullduggery, poppycock, and some negative words that I would need to mention. So obviously it has nothing to do with music.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't use it.
Yeah. It's a way of kind of suppressing something.
Yeah, you deny people the credit that they should have.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're geniuses.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's very unappreciative and demeaning.
Yeah, I can understand your
And so,
view.
therefore, I coined my own term for my music, which is Autophisiopsychic music.
Yeah.
As you know, which means music from the physical, mental, and spiritual self. And if I perform someone else's music, I'm giving an autophisiopsychic interpretation of their music.
Yeah.
Words have meanings, and words transmit ideas.
Of course.
And we
The
should,
pictures,
yeah. So we should try to be as exact and truthful
as you possibly can. Yeah.
because you take people like Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, they contributed so much to that aspect of culture called music.
Yeah. Well, to the society itself.
Yes, of course. So we should be grateful for what they left with us.
Yeah.
Use the terms to define.
Outstanding. Brother Yousef always clarifies so much when he's speaking about not only his music and what he chooses to call it. You know, he would often say, I know what you're talking about when he's speaking of that J word. I know what you're talking about, but this is what I choose to call my music. You know, as I said, I think it's important that the artist search within itself to find out what it is that he wants to call the music that he's doing, unless he just chooses to call it what everybody else calls it, and that's part of the problem. He went into, you know, there's actually, Yusef did a paper, an essay where he talked about where the words to describe this music, and he mentioned some of the words skullduggery and poppycock and some other words. And he says some of the words he would not even say because they were so vulgar, you know. And he said it did not do diligence. And he said they weren't talking about music. They were talking about an act of something, you know, like some people know that term jazz has reference to fornication. This is what he told me when I first got a chance to speak with him about that. And
No, just I'm gonna leave this article that you mentioned on the description after we finish, and I just put in the chat also here.
Okay, wonderful. Our next interview, and I thought this is important, one of the things that we do with our live stream is that we can talk about things. We can talk about opinions of music, and I think it's important to bring in all of these different opinions, whether they be negative or not. You know, we hope that that these attitudes will be positive. Of course, that's sometimes expecting too much. But nonetheless, when we talk to some of the giants of this music, what do they have to say? Now, this next was actually an interview, a documentary on Dizzy Gillespie, and I hope that some of you will have the time to listen to the entire, and some of you I know are have watched this, you know, and have understood what Dizzy Gillespie was saying.
Ralph, I think he's frozen. Can you hear me? Hear him? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think he's having some connection problem. I'm glad to see you back. You're muted, brother. You're still muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say Mother Nature can bring a stop to everything. So, did we hear, did you play the Miles Davis interview?
No, I didn't play anything. I was
okay.
hoping that we would come back. You know, I know that you have some comments to say about him, but also I was saying to our audience that if you didn't come back, we could continue this live stream on the next Tuesday, since we're moving our YouTube live streams to Tuesdays and beginning our next module on Thursday. But yeah, it was about it.
Well, here I am. And I think you showed the Yousef interview, is that correct? Good. Let's do the Miles Davis interview really quickly, because I know it's getting late and you know people might want to get off. If you start at 1:58, and this is an interview that Miles did with Gwen Summers, actually in Atlanta. If you can, yeah. We're still on the term jazz.
I'm sorry, Rolf?
Okay, we can go.
What do you think it will mean in the history of jazz, say 20 years from now, this jazz?
Well, first place they won't be calling it jazz. Should call it new music or another name. Because I associate jazz with nigger, you know, those Uncle Tom words that white people use. You know, when you jazz, that's what it means to me. Because when you go in the record store and you see people walk past the jazz thing, you know, you know, the corner where they have jazz, they walk right past it. So the fusion that's it nowadays for us to ad-lib against. It's a better background.
Speaking of ad-libbing and improvisation, when you were playing the piece time after time out there, could
Okay,
you
that's fine. They're
describe
getting into another section. My Zoom is still uploading, but can we go to Gary Bartz? Gary Bartz also did Don't Call Me a Jazz Musician. And if you can start at 4:49 until Q.
Players, you know, and that's how he looked at it. We're blues players. You know, we're not that J word. We're blues players.
Okay. That's good. Gary Bartz says we're blues players. We're blues musicians. I think Yusef used that term. Call me a blues musician if you're going to call me anything, you know, other than autophisiopsychic musician. One more thing I do, and I think we might have missed that. James Moody was talking about the life of a so-called jazz musician. And if you start with the documentary he did of Dizzy Gillespie, but start at 3752, I think that's a very important statement there. Yes.
To bop and not to be.
Yeah, to bop or not to be. And this is James Moody and Johnny Griffith. But James Moody is talking about Johnny Griffith and the life that he's leading. Okay, 3752, right there. That's great.
Johnny Griffith is sitting here now, healthy, but he's paid his dues, and when I say this, he's gonna smile and say, yeah, the jazz musician, you get on a bus and you travel. You don't get any sleep, you don't get any food. We used to be down south. You couldn't go in a hotel because they wouldn't let us go because we were black. Sorry to say it, but in those days, that's the way it was. We had to come up like that. We couldn't get any sleep. When you could get some sleep, it was in a little rinky-dinky place. They would mess with your money, and the people who were getting the money were the agents. The agents were getting the money in New York, and they were the ones doing it. And they called themselves, now there were some that were trying to do halfway right, but they would be getting money under the table. In other words, the jazz musician has been screwed over ever since there's been the word jazz, you see? But now, the jazz musician is getting a little more aware of things, so he formed
Aha.
a company.
Okay,
trying
that's
to find
good.
new ways to.
Very good. So, James Moody talked about some of the challenges of doing this music and what happens when you decide that you want to do this music, and what can happen to you when you choose to travel, when you choose to go on the road, and the agents and the managers that are taking advantage of the artists and taking their money, which means that it affects their families. You see, so when you take on the responsibility of being a leader, and you go out on the road, then you're going to have the responsibility of making sure not only that you pay your musicians, but you pay them so that they can take care of their families. This is very important. And I'm going to have we had any questions or any comments?
Yes,
Yeah.
first from Carolyn here on Zoom.
Yes. How are you, Carolyn?
She first says that very interesting interview, especially those from Max Roach's analogy of Eastern classical autocratic versus Western democratic, very enlightening. And then she asks, can you or Ralph, I already spoke a little bit about it when you were down, when you were offline. Can you or Ralph speak to Mingus's comments about making less money, even though he was getting more acknowledgments in jazz magazines and newspapers? What is creating the situation? I think the two last videos just explained it very well. But do you have any any insight on this?
Well, Carolyn, and you know, I know Carolyn's late husband, was an outstanding musician, trombonist with Count Basie and with others. You know, he dedicated his life to the music. And a lot of people are, you know, romanticize when they see musicians going from town to town or going from country to country. Sometimes those engagements may be romanticized, I should say, because you're going and you're visiting, and sometimes you're going to be treated well in some of these places, and sometimes not. What James Moody was talking about is actually what goes on, not for everybody. You know, Duke Ellington had a big band that he took all over the world, and he made sure that he paid his musicians out of his royalties that he got, you know. And I think that's one of the things I think that we can look at when we talk about these great musicians and how do they make it, you know, financially. And so many of these great musicians, you know, they transition without any health insurance, without any burial insurance, without any kind of you know, money to take care of their families. These things are a reality. When you decide that you're going to go into this music, this is one of the sacrifices that you may come upon. Carolyn, I know you have seen this, and so many of us that are on right now have seen this type of chicanery going on with agents and managers, and you know, sometimes band leaders, etc. Yeah, Ade, thank you, brother. You know, Adeyemi is going to leave because he's having problems with his connections as well. Something's going on with the weather down here in Atlanta, where we are, and yeah, the Moody comment said it all. You're absolutely right, and I'm glad that you saw that, because who would be a greater spokesman for the music, or as great a spokesman for the music as James Moody, as Johnny Griffith, as Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy Gillespie said, "We did not call our music bebop." Now think about that. And I heard him say this. He did a workshop at UCLA some years ago, and I was a student there. And Charles Moore and I, we waited around until everybody had kind of left so we could talk to Dizzy Gillespie one-on-one. You know, I'm going to say this, we talk differently with each other than we talk to others. I'm going to say that. And Dizzy Gillespie said, Yard and I never did call our music bebop. He said that we called our music modern music, and this is what we wanted them to call us. John Coltrane said they called our music jazz so they could sell us. I do not embrace that term at all. It means nothing. So I mean, these are some of the greatest musicians in this music have looked at this and say, well, as long as they put us in the category, like Mingus was saying, as long as I was writing for Dinah Washington and doing various recording dates and everything, as long as I was not known as a jazz musician. But the minute that they put us in this category, this is what happened. He said, I stopped making money. He said, and he had really some extreme, he was evicted out of his apartment. He had gone through a lot of really terrible things that he had to go through. And it's just so sad that he had to be a victim of a name. And we're looking at that, a victim of a name. So, are there some other questions that we have? And of course, we can pick that up. Yes.
Just a few more comments, but also not to forget the time when John Coltrane was also called anti-jazz.
Absolutely.
Then
which
this
is
was
a left-handed compliment.
yeah, and this was a theme in our first module, and also is a theme of one of our videos here in our YouTube channel. But so we had some comments from Donald Carson and of course Charles Scruggs.
Thank you,
But
Charles.
this is really nice from Donald because we received a lot of hate and he just put out these beautiful words to incentivize us. So
thank you, brother Charles. I know who wrote that. Charles, thank you so much. Very, very, and Charles Scruggs and Charles from that I see. Charles Carson. Okay. That's his cousin, actually. Yeah. Donald Carson. But that's really Charles. I know who that is. Thank you very much. And Charles Scruggs, of course, could be weather related. You're right. We have talked about that. Georgia Power did not give an ET for the power of restoration. You're right about that, brother. I wonder what is going on with that. And I hope I can get that. I got that right. Yeah. Were there any other questions before? Maybe we need to quit while we're behind, huh?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we can pick up on this on Tuesday when we do our live session.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of things to talk about, and we're just scratching the surface, as Ralph always says.
Yeah, baby steps.
Yeah.
But listen, I want to say thank you to everybody that stuck with us through this these weather situations that we have no control over. And I came back just as soon as I could, and I'm grateful for Juan and Ilham for carrying on. What a wonderful staff we have of wonderful people, and they have carried on, and we're going to go on with this. Carolyn, thank you. It's good to see your name again. And Deirdre, it's good to see your name. And Derek, we'll talk soon. And if there's anybody else that has any questions, save them or send your questions to our YouTube. Is that correct? Our YouTube address. And then we can also continue this discussion on Tuesday.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you so much. I'm glad you came and joined us. And hopefully we'll get some more comments, positive comments like that, when we resume on Tuesday. And then don't forget ASM, our open house, our 15th module. We've been doing ASM for 4 years. 4 years and 15 modules. How wonderful that is. What a blessing to be able to continue this. And we will continue, inshallah, as long as we are able to do that. By the way, Deirdre, I did get a chance to see that film. I hope you got the email. They shot the piano player. Juan, when you get a chance to see it, check out that film. Very good. Or anybody else that gets a chance to see that movie, they shot the piano player. Very good film, Brazilian animated film. So we're going to take off, okay?
All right.
All right. And I'm sorry. Thank you, Deirdre. You know, I'm so sorry that these weather situations just cut me off twice. You know, so I had to go get my iPad and complete with my iPad. Juan, thank you so much. Ilham, thank you so much. Thank you, Derek and Deirdre and Carolyn, and all of you that were able to join us. Thank you for calling and finding out and checking on me, Ilham. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay. So we shall see each other on Tuesday, inshallah.
And Tuesday, inshallah. Thank you.
Okay.
On Tuesday.
All right. Peace.
Peace.